And here I am, Chip here. Jeff's on his way pretty soon. But I wanted to start off by just saying if it's your first time here, like, subscribe, click that notification bell. And I would talk a little bit about we have an upcoming, actually this Sunday, well, depending on where you're from, this Sunday you will be joining, we have our very first meetup with On the Chain. So that's going to be something pretty interesting. Guys, we're going to drop the link. It's actually in the description below. But we're going to get into some topics tonight that I think are very interesting, especially the fact that Ripple, when you look at Ripple as a company, a lot's been said since that complaint dropped. And we kind of got some word here from Mr. Brad Garlinghouse. I wanted to share this with you guys. First off, let's go through the chat here. Professor XRP, first into the chat. James Rule XRP, who was on last night with us. We had an amazing talk. What's up, Brandon Heisman? Barbara Taylor's here, longtime supporter. Drop where you're from. Just go ahead. I see Crypto Fang is from Thailand, but go ahead and drop in there where you're from. And I want to go ahead and get into this. The very first thing right here. By the way, I've gotten word that Jeff has hit the studio, be joining us momentarily. But I wanted to go into this because, as it's been said, well, Ripple, they're crying over spilt milk. What are they doing? What's happening? Well, there's some pretty decent stuff happening there. And I want to jump into this right here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Brad Garlinghouse threw this out just about 4 hours ago. And if you guys hadn't seen it, let's just dive into it. Basically says 2020 was a banner year for Ripple. Oh, no kidding. Despite a disappointing ending to U.S. regulation, understatement? Oh, hell yeah. I would say that's the understatement of the year. And he says we processed millions of RippleNet, and we grew ODL on-demand liquidity 12 times year over year, and signed 15 new customers after the SEC complaint. So let's talk a little bit about that. 15 brand new customers. Now, what does that tell you? I mean, this thing dropped on the 23rd. The complaint actually dropped. We got word of it on the 22nd of December, 2020, but it actually physically dropped on December 23rd. What's up, Jeff? How are you?
What is going on?
Man, you are way overdressed for this, but I'm glad to see you.
Check that out.
You're looking dapper tonight, Jeff.
Yeah.
Came from an important meeting, no doubt. You got a little bit of that the fuzz going. I like it, man. It's a good look for you.
Looking good, right?
It's a good look, man.
The whole ensemble.
That's nice. That's a good looking jacket, man. So I feel underdressed now, but we're both wearing gray. That's the most important thing.
Fit in perfectly.
So what we were just talking about here is that Brad Garlinghouse put out this tweet basically saying that, despite the fact that the SEC dropped that complaint against Ripple on the 23rd of December last month, they signed up 15 new customers. Now, what does that tell you, Jeff? That tells me
awesome was that, man?
Business as usual, right?
You got to love that. That's business. I mean, here the SEC's filing a suit, and you say, you know what? Hey, we believe what we believe. We know what we know, and we're going to continue doing business. That's not going to stop us.
Not going to stop us, man. It's like, you might be surprised. I mean, we're just talking about a month from now. We're talking about 4 weeks ago, and they're signing up customers. If you do the breakdown on that, it's at least one plus customer, two plus customers a week, three. Let me see. It's 4 months, 3, 4. Yeah, it's up 3 plus customers every single week. And he goes on to say, and they basically posted this article about 2020 momentum again, and Ripple contributed to the XRPL version upgrades. They created a tool with Energy Web so anyone can decarbonize the blockchain of their choice. They put that out earlier in the year. Crypto can be sustainable. That's a little bit of a dig there, a little on Bitcoin. He's helping build new use cases for XRP with other industry participants. We added 100 plus new faces to the Ripple team, including several leadership members. We have an incredible, resilient team in place to tackle 2021 and beyond. No matter what, we'll stay true to our mission of building an internet of value. How do you like that, Jeff?
That's huge. I mean, that's what they're all about. And they, from their perspective, this isn't going to stop them. It's not going to hold them back. And, they feel like they're coming out, justified. So I think, once we go through this, you'll see the article also that that Ripple put out, and we can spend a little bit of time even going through some of the lessons learned from Kick, because Kick is still around.
Look at this. Jason Statham's on the show. I think they're talking about you, Jeff. I like Jason Statham. He's always in really good
He's always
action
been pretty
movies.
cool.
Yeah, it's always pretty good. That's always good to hear, man. Yeah,
What was
and
one of the first movies that he was in? Wasn't that Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
oh wow, you're going back to some really good stuff. That was a phenomenal movie, by the way. Gosh,
That was one
Jeff.
of the best.
By the way, who was that directed by? Just out of curiosity, we're gonna pull some trivia here.
Oh,
Used
I
to,
don't know.
I'll
I don't
drop a
remember.
hint. Used to be married to Madonna. Was
Doesn't
also
help.
written by him. Guy Ritchie. Just saying.
Guy Ritchie, that's right.
There you go.
Good one.
Sorry, Melly. We're gonna pull the trivia tonight. We got to go back now. Important things I'm supposed to remember. Not enough room in there, Jeff. Taken up by useless trivia questions. Yeah, transporter.
Right.
By the way, I got to direct the kid that
Oh,
was.
the
I think
Transporter, another good one.
I got to direct the kid in another thing that I was working on from Transporter. I think it was. Was it the little kid from Transporter? I think so. Was that the kid where he was protecting him, protecting the family and taking him to school? Anyway, that kid right after that.
One of them.
Yeah, right after he did that movie, I had the chance to work with him. He actually was worked with an open audition, and then I was like,
Sweet.
I know that kid's face, so it was kind of a cool thing. So yeah, there's so much going on every day. We can't even digest it all. We'll never get to it at any given time, timetable. I think that in the same vein of what we were talking about, I think this is going to be key too, because this is kind of like a continuation. You guys know Ashish Burla. Now he's one of the big things. He became the general manager of RippleNet. He's also a board member, and wanted to put this tweet up here, Jeff. I thought we should digest this. So he basically took Brad's tweet, and then he kind of like commented on it. And this is what now I really like the theme of this. He says, all things considered, Ripple had a pretty incredible year in 2020. In my 7+ years at Ripple, I remain insanely proud of what this team has achieved. And I'm bullish on where we're going, diving deeper specifically on RippleNet. So he starts a thread here, one of 8, but he comes right off about how insanely proud he is. I mean, he packs a lot in there. 7+ years with Ripple. Ripple's forging ahead. We're diving deeper, specifically on RippleNet. So he's going to go into a whole launch thing. I mean, isn't this refreshing to hear from like leaders within Ripple versus like go hide in a corner and don't say anything? They're business as usual from what I can see.
And also not on the upset or the anger mode.
No.
I mean, they could take a whole different approach where they could come out kind of like what Kick did,
Yeah.
where they went on the aggressive offense, then started lashing out at the SEC. But here, that, Ripple understands the dynamics from a political, how do you handle people the right way kind of thing, So I think that's definitely an important variable.
Yeah, and so I want to continue on this sort of theme. And you're right, Jeff, that's a really good point you're making there, that they didn't come out swinging. They're like, hey, this, look, there's a little bit of a little bummer at the end of the year, but we had an amazing year, and they're going to talk about it. So he says we processed 3 million transactions on RippleNet in 2020, and on-demand liquidity is rapidly growing. On-demand liquidity transactions accounted for 2.4 billion in notational value. We planted the RippleNet flag in 18 new countries. Whoa, Jeff.
You gotta love that. That's huge. That's massive. I love how that sounds. 18 new countries, and ODL is rapidly growing. I mean, what is the one thing, the critique that you hear from people in the Twitter sphere is that Ripple has no, ODL has no use case. ODL is not being used. ODL is not blah blah blah. And we know it is. It's been, shown to have been used, even though it might not be used, like, let's say with MoneyGram, wasn't used for the retail, is used for foreign currency exchange. SBI is using it, and implementing it in different corridors. So, everything that they put together, they envisioned, is coming together. Now, this is just a bump in the road. In business, there's going to be lawsuits. How else do you solve a disagreement? And here it's the SEC. But if the SEC feels that they're justified because of X, and company says that you're not because of Y, now you have to go to court. I mean, there's no other. How else are you going to resolve it?
Yeah, it's a good point. So, and that's a way to probably get a pretty quick resolve too, right? Especially with the transfers. the new team coming in, and then he says not only 18 new countries, but the fact that they signed 15 deals after the SEC complaint was made public. So they
I
knew it was
like that.
coming. But now what does that tell me?
Good.
That tells me that these companies still signed on the dotted line. They don't have any concerns about it, right? They're not, because the easy thing to
Good
do would
point.
be to pull back. I mean, was that supposed to be 20 people and 15 people signed? Look, the bottom line is, over the period of 3 or 4 weeks, you're looking at, at least 3+ a week, which has kind of been their norm. Usually they sign about two to three new customers a week. And sometimes these are in the works for some time. So it's not like it just happens. So I think that's huge. He goes on to say that APAC is still our busiest region for customer demand and transaction growth. In India, we're working with 3/5 of the biggest banks and the MENA India corridor. One of the biggest in the world for remittances is rapidly growing. Could be our largest soon. Wow, there's
And
a
it,
lot of
it
stuff
will
being
be.
dropped in this, Jeff.
And that is a massive statement. India, by far, probably one of the biggest markets to tackle. If they can accomplish even a fraction just in India, I mean, you think about the amount of growth that's going on over there. And it's not like, trying to go after China. China is going after its own digital payment space. I shared that video with you this morning, and I thought,
Yeah.
that was from a year ago. But think about this statement that was made in that video about China. Was it 90% of their economy is already digitized, and cash is fiat is disappearing, and they've already been way ahead in terms of the direction they're going in. You can talk about from a political perspective what their thoughts are, but here's in India, still a large percentage of that population is unbanked, and that means a lot. That means that there's a lot of growth and development to be had in this digitized payment space, and there's a lot of workers outside of India that are sending money back to India, and there's certain parts of India that are reliant on those I would say dollars, but whatever the currency is, that money coming back.
Yeah, and what I really like about he's dropping some serious hints. The way this is positioned, it's really difficult to take a thread. I think it's seven tweets, assembled together. So you got to be very concise and very particular about the way you're going to language this. But he goes on to say, and it just keeps getting better, Jeff. He says every customer and partner joins RippleNet with the same base service and a crypto wallet. RippleNet is designed to seamlessly upgrade and add new services when ready. This is very important. When ready. Well, what does that mean? It says we're evolving from strictly payments into a platform with tokenized services. Holy cow, there's so much being dropped in this tweet right here. It's just phenomenal. And then he comes and says, we purposely built RippleNet to get financial institutions comfortable with using blockchain-based network for fiat transactions, and when they're ready, flip the switch to ODL, line of credit, and soon to come
Man,
new products. Wow.
that's by far the biggest statement right there. I mean, that's massive. I mean, talk about, everyone has talked about the flipping of the switch to ODL, and is it going to be a slow rollout where you get a few customers and they start utilizing, or you've got all of your customers? Imagine you're sitting on 400 500 customers right now, none of them using ODL. You got a couple over here using ODL, and they're like, okay, we're turning on the switch and everybody's using ODL right now. That's a massive statement. And just the idea of them getting people accustomed, these guys know what they're doing. There's no easy fix, and there's no easy conversion of banks that have been used to working in the legacy system for so long. It just
Well,
doesn't happen overnight.
no, it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of planning goes into it. So this is one of the things I want to call some attention to right here. Here he says we're seamlessly upgrade, add new services when ready. We're evolving from a strictly payments platform. Now, when you hear about this, all we've heard about is it's the banker's coin. Yeah, it's used by remittances. Yeah, financial institutions and banks. Blah blah blah. Right? And here, Jeff, we've talked an awful lot about the fact that new use cases are being developed all the time. Now, this is actually very timely news given the complaint with the SEC that's coming up. But then he drops this. From a strictly a payments to a platform with tokenized services. And then he finishes it up over here with flip the switch, the line of credit, and soon to come new products. So what he's teasing here are some new products. Now, I remember when they first kind of dropped the line of credit, we weren't really sure what it was until a couple months later. Now he's talking about these new products that are coming. We're not 100% sure, but he says as RippleNet evolves, so do the types. Now, what is this text? What is this? What is
Transactions.
this? Transactions. Thank you. We process. We started with the remittances because they have the highest friction. These still make up the majority of RippleNet transactions, but we're continuing to expand further into the business-to-business and e-commerce payments in 2021. Did you see what he dropped there, Jeff? E-commerce payments.
I see that. Yeah.
So is that teasing what's coming?
That definitely
potentially
is. That's a massive transition. So it was all about the big financial institutions. It's about the banks. It's about remittance payments. But, now they're taking a different step. So now going from the big institutions, going down to the B2B side of it, almost saying like, hey, we've got all this stuff accomplished, but the B2B, if you're using our platform, you almost don't need these guys. I'm not sure if that's 100% what they're saying, but so here's the part that I wouldn't, I don't understand then from that dynamic, either, they're, initially building out the rails. We're building out the banks, building out the financial institutions. Those guys, since they oversee the rails, they're not out there promoting the rails. So they're not out specifically recruiting businesses to use the rails, the banks. Some banks, think about from a business perspective. You have banking guys knocking on your door and saying, hey, can we get your business? And the reason why we want your business because we have this awesome software called RippleNet that we're using, or is it going to be now Ripple that is going to package in some solutions that utilize the rails of these banks or financial institutions that they're already laying right now? So they're building the railroad, and now they're trying to figure out, the engine and the passengers, and Ripple is going to be responsible. Is that what they're saying? What are your thoughts?
Well, it could be, but it's hard to totally read into it. But if we go back to his statement here where he says we're continuing to expand further into business to business, because quite honestly, they've been really about the large, financial institutions, the money, receivers and senders, the MoneyGrams of the world, the large banks of the world. But they're talking about going further into business to business, and the e-commerce payments. So the e-commerce is key right there, because I've really never heard, now you guys may have, I don't recall them really specifically talking about e-commerce. Now it's been floated, but you got these back-to-back tweets. You got Ashish Burla going into it. You got Brad Garlinghouse coming out, swinging, and kind of what it looks like they're doing is setting the tone for 2021, right? First quarter, going to start talking about what they did. Great year last year. Here's what we're looking to do this year. And they're dropping all kinds of, Ashish is dropping all kinds of bombs here. E-commerce payments. He's talking about the fact that the whole idea behind RippleNet was to get these financial institutions used to it, and then boom, flip the switch. There's nothing really necessary to do other than flipping the switch, and all of a sudden, boom, they're on the ODL. So, and the transition has to happen that way, only because they're competing against something like Swift, so they get people accustomed to using it because it's like the legacy system they're using, only better, and then they can go ahead and flip the switch.
And
then he says,
first few times it's free.
Right, exactly.
And after that
works, right, Jeff? Yeah, that works. The world's becoming more digital. Consumers expect convenience, low cost, secure, and scalable services from their financial providers, whether traditional financial institutions or nimble fintech. Our customers are delivering the next generation of financial solutions through RippleNet.
Man,
boom.
That's massive. That's massive. Holy crap. It's, I don't think we've seen anything quite like this. You can read through the website, you kind of get and try to drive into it. But what he's rolling out in this series of tweets is giving so much, positivity, in a space where they say, hey, you know what? Yes, the SEC case is going on, but here's what's happened during this cycle. And by the way, look at everything that's going to take place now in 2021, there's a lot of, it, it's mind-boggling. It's interesting too, as we're seeing the crypto space from a speculative perspective blow up. All right, what's going on with Bitcoin? Now there's there's so many articles coming out on Ethereum that Ethereum is taking over where Bitcoin is leaving off, and people are going to flee Bitcoin to Ethereum. But while there's little battles going on between Pepsi and Coke, now you've got Ripple that's building. They're building the smart future, of banking, and it's a whole different conversation. It's like, hey, you know what? We're not talking about the competition here between two sugary sodas. We're talking about something that is going to move and facilitate the movement of finances on a global scale. And he's referencing that over, and here's a company that is making that happen. Now it's exciting because ODL is exciting. ODL is the game changer. If we're looking at this company, if Ripple ever filed an IPO, man, it would go crazy, right? And then you have their ODL, which needs XRP and needs the XRP ledger. That stuff's not going anywhere. Things are just getting started.
Things are just getting started. That's absolutely 100%. And then he finishes it off. This is the 8th thread here. He says, RippleNet's enabling financial institutions to deliver that were previously offered only by multinational banks without the cost and overhead of legacy systems. Legacy systems, Jeff. If you want to build the future of financial services, come join us. Now, what I find amazing here is not only that, but he's also working into, hey, guess what? We're building the future. We're kicking ass. We're rolling out these new products. He's teasing new stuff that's coming down the pike, new use cases. And oh yeah, by the way, click over here. And here's the future. So they just put 100 brand new people in 2020. Think about 100 new people.
Yep.
That's a pretty massive. Now look at the openings that they have here. So some biz dev opportunities, customer success, a lot of engineering roles, institutional markets, integration engineering, obviously legal, that's going to be necessary, marketing, people operations, product and delivery, RippleNet administrative, RippleX products, sales, and workplace operations. So wow,
nice.
I like one of the things when I see something like an Ashish Burla put together a thread like that, eight tweets. A lot was said in 8 tweets. Sometimes I read articles in some of these trades, the ones that cover cryptocurrencies and blah blah blah. It's 4,000 ads, 3 paragraphs, says nothing.
Right.
Or they write a whole thing about one tweet and they try to like read into it and everything. This is a lot going on. I was pretty excited to talk about this thing tonight because that was even more exciting than what Brad was saying. But I think you brought up a good point, Jeff. They are coming out and they're like, yeah, a little bit of a bummer with the SEC. But hey, let's talk about how great a year 2020 was, because 2020 was a pretty bummer year for in a lot of ways. And since that complaint, they signed up 15 new customers. That means 15 people said, oh yeah, we're aware of the SEC complaint. Any worries? No, not a one.
Yeah,
they signed up.
It's crazy. It's amazing to me. We're sitting here. I was talking to another buddy of mine, and he's following a lot of YouTube channels on stocks, and and I started watching some of his stock channels, YouTube channels.
Oh yeah.
And they're very similar in the space where people start gravitating to specific stocks, like one of the ones that you and I have talked about, Palantir. And the excitement, and Palantir tomorrow is having their their demo days, Palantir demo days, similar to the Neo demo days that took place last week. It's exciting, right? I mean, it's because you have a product, you have something being developed, you have new software rollouts, you see the company is building and developing into a certain direction. And the one thing that you don't have necessarily with, let's say, Bitcoin, is that it's exciting because of the growth of the dollar amount that's attached to it. But beyond that, it's lacking excitement, right? I mean, it's changing, it's game changing. And it's exciting just for that one perspective. What's amazing about Ripple is that they're changing the way legacy payments have been made. Legacy movement of money, I should say, not the payments, but the movement of money. To me, how much more exciting can you get than that when that's going to change the whole fabric? Bitcoin was the beginning. You got to give it credit for what it was. You know, if you invest in Bitcoin, that's awesome. But there's so much more to this space. And Chip, you said it once, you know, for all those Bitcoin maxis out there that just think Bitcoin is the one, you know, could you imagine you go and you go to the stock market, you're like, what should I invest in? Oh, there's only Amazon.
It's so silly. That's when you realize the silliness of the argument, right?
Yeah, makes no
and then what do you
sense.
say, like, and hey, by the way, there's Amazon, and then there are the alt stocks, right? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, these are the alt stocks. What is that? Well, that's everything. It's not Amazon. Amazon is the king. Well, you know, or whatever one came first. You know, maybe you probably have to go back to maybe Wells Fargo is probably one of, you know, one of the oldest GE, you know,
one of the original.
And maybe at one point there really weren't a lot going on, you know. I mean, as far as the market's concerned, but that's how this shows you the ludicrous nature of people's thinking, to think so small and to think, well, you know, I mean, there's the alt stock, and the fact that we even we engage in that conversation. It's altcoin season. What? There's only one season. It's cryptocurrency, you know, but we still engage in it's altcoin season. The altcoins are popping, and the altcoins are not Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but you're right. But there's nothing, you know, like for example, Palantir. Like I'm a big fan of Peter Thiel. I've read his books. I followed him for many years. He came out of the PayPal mafia, as they're affectionately called. He's done a lot of interesting stuff, but I just like his come from, how he approaches things. You know, some of the foundations he set up he says, forget about going to college, write an idea, I'll fund you, I'll give you $100,000. And he's turned so many of these kids, 16 or 17-year-old kids, into, you know, instant, you know, funded out there and make an impact in the world. And so when I knew about Palantir a couple years ago, I was like, when the IPO came out and IPO'd at $9, I was like, this is a $300-400 stock at some point, you know. And so you're right, there's that excitement of what's the company. Now, we don't really know 100% of what they do because it's all government contracts, but it's pretty intense technology. I think it might be around the artificial intelligence. Regardless of what it is, you know, we start reading about Ripple here. Ashish is going on. He's teasing new stuff. By the way, we got new stuff coming up. He's teasing the fact that now they're going to dive heavier into business to business. And oh yeah, what about e-commerce payments? So you're starting to see in just one Twitter thread the expansion of what Ripple is up to. And everyone's like, oh, payments remittance company, big deal, and financial institutions. Well, hey, slow that train down. If XLM can be retail, guess who else can be retail? If XLM didn't want anything to do with the financial sector, what are they doing messing around with CBDCs, right? Two can play at that game, and it's an open market. But Brad Garlinghouse has always stated that they're always going to be able to go beyond the simple use case. They're not a one-trick pony, and I think one of the things that's really evident, and it's timely coming with the SEC complaint, is you have multiple use cases. You can stream right now if you have a Coil subscription right now, and you're watching us through a browser that's Coil enabled, you are streaming micropayments to us. And how important is that? Well, it adds up pretty quick. You know,
dude, it's so important. I mean, you think about all the use cases of streaming payments. I mean, you know, imagine you paid your cable bill based on your use, not prepaid based on your use, but streamed your use. So it's like, hey, I used 5 minutes worth of internet this month. Guess what? You paid 5 minutes of internet. I'm just saying. You used, 50 hours of internet. Guess what? You paid 50 hours. You want to torque it a little bit? You want more speed? Yep, I want more speed. Well, your streaming payment costs just went up. You're not paying. It's changing. It's going to revolutionize how everything is done, because right now it's all in the favor of the big companies. The big companies then, kind of gang up and they price fix, even though price fixing is illegal. You see it happen. The mobile phone industry. When was it? Everybody had unlimited internet, right? Then all of a sudden, AT&T came out and said, "Nope, we're not doing unlimited internet anymore. You're now going to pay a flat dollar amount for internet usage." Then every company followed suit, and then T-Mobile started offering free internet again, and then Verizon, free internet, unlimited internet, but you had to pay a set fee. But it was unlimited. It wasn't. I mean, it's all this big game, and they all they're playing the game. When is the power going to be back in the hands of the people, where the people get the benefit and can use it? At the end of the day, businesses are going to benefit because they're going to get more customers, and they're going to simplify the payment process.
It's so funny. I was just going to bring up James Real XRP. He throws a big 10 spot.
Oh, look at that.
I would have said
Appreciate
XRP, has some cash. Cheers. Hey, thanks a lot. Man, we had an awesome conversation yesterday. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is like, when, James went into full detail about, the fact that that's how he's paid. He's compensated in XRP. If you're compensated in XRP, guess what? That's a phenomenal use case. We know about an esports team over in Japan that has the same similar thing, but at some point, suppose over the course of, if you're paid monthly, or if you're paid every 2 weeks or whatever your payday is, imagine if you're getting stream payments, right? So every day, every minute of the day, whatever your salary is for that 24-hour period, you are accumulating. So, I mean, that's what's possible. I mean, I know James said that he gets it in one sort of trough, but the whole point is that James has made the transition. He's doing what a lot of us, may dream of someday, saying, hey, man, wouldn't it be cool if I got paid in XRP? Well, guess what? He's already done it. So that's pretty damn cool. And look at this, Jeff. I want to show you this story here. The Bank of Singapore says that crypto could replace gold as a store of value, right?
They're a little bit late to the game here.
Well, but hang on a second, though. Well, wait a minute, though. But this is interesting because they're not talking about what we have always heard is going to replace gold. It's always Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is going to be replaced. It's going to replace gold. What they're talking about here is cryptos need to overcome a number of hurdles first, according to a research note. But they go on to say the Bank of Singapore, the private banking arm of OCBC, said that the cryptocurrency has the potential to partially replace gold as a store of value. Now, this is the first time I've heard cryptocurrencies. We've heard ad nauseum about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the new gold. It's better than gold. And you have these like fights breaking out on the Twitterverse, right? And it says, and they're throwing some sort of a kind of caution here, saying before that they have to overcome hurdles, the high volatility, regulatory acceptance, regulatory acceptance, and reputational risks, according to a research note. First, investors need trustworthy institutions to be able to hold digital currencies. Here in the States we have. So what we're starting to see get unpacked here is the whole idea that it's potential. Did I just freeze up again? No, there we go. Oh. Some weird thing when I share my screen, something weird happens. But I mean, what do you think about this, Jeff? The fact that they're lumping all of crypto, not just talking about Bitcoin.
I like it. I think, the conversation is also getting to the point where when people talk about Bitcoin, they're referring to the space. They're referring to crypto. One of the things that they tried doing was also changing the terminology, because cryptocurrency seemed to be, it allows for the misinformation and the misunderstanding that digital assets are utilized, for nefarious purposes only because it's crypto. It's, cryptic, so,
Cryptic.
it kind of has a stigma. They start talking about Bitcoin, really the digital asset space, and you start slipping, hey, let's talk about Bitcoin. It's a pool of Bitcoin. What is it? Oh, it's everything. It's all digital asset.
Hey, a big shout out to David Maturu. Thank you very much for the 299 super sticker. Living in the van down by the river.
Yeah, I want to throw something up here real quick from Organic FUD, because he is not just any old FUD, he's organic. The SEC is claiming XRP has no utility. It's just a tool to enrich Ripple. Wouldn't now be a good time to flip a switch, at least one? I don't think there is a switch. Now, I think that's interesting because, there was a lot of that speculation. When is Ripple just going to flip the switch and everything's just going to come on all of a sudden? And I also believe that, there was never such thing as a specific switch that was going to turn on and all of a sudden the price of everything was going to skyrocket. However, what Ashish Burla was referencing when in regards to the switch, which does become relevant, is that ODL, their on-demand liquidity, isn't necessarily active on every single one of the software platforms that they're implementing, that is utilizing RippleNet. So RippleNet is a component, is the primary software. ODL is just one facet of it, and it's an optional facet. However, what he's referencing there is, as these banks get accustomed to the digital payment framework, which is RippleNet, which is the messaging solution that is distinctly different from Swift because of the digital aspect of it. And now they're getting more and more used to the terminology and the verbiage. ODL is there. Some of them are utilizing ODL, as we had mentioned. But now when they flip the switch, that means activating the majority of the RippleNet software solutions that are active in the banking space and financial institution space. Now, all of a sudden, they are all utilizing ODL. And you basically activate that part of it. And I believe that's what he's referencing. When you flip that switch and, let's say you have 100 customers that are using, but you have a total of 1,000 customers. You have 900 customers not using it because it's not active. Now, when you flip the switch, you're activating ODL across the entire platform. I believe that's what he's referencing. What are your thoughts?
I think that's what he's really getting at there too. But it's hard to know 100%.
It's hard to say. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just
one of the things that I wanted to say. So the Bank of Singapore brought something up that we talk about frequently on the show here on the Chain Live, is that governments are very wary of any technology that could potentially displace national currencies. This would reduce the ability of policymakers to print money during economic crises, he added, right? So I think that's another big thing right there too, because now we're starting to see a lot of blowback against, Bitcoin, but there's other ones as well, because I think really what we're looking at as a threat, and some people here before have suggested that potentially the SEC v. Ripple complaint might have been somewhat potentially politically motivated, maybe in the sense that it's disrupting a system that's been around for 40 plus years, maybe Swift. It also displaces the fact that it would be more difficult to be able to shut down bad actors, countries that are doing bad things. You could just shut them down. Well, guess what? We're gonna move beyond that, and some governments are gonna go kicking and screaming. They're not gonna like it, but guess what? That's where they came up with this brilliant idea, the CBDCs, right? Central bank digital currencies. I know. We'll make our own digital currency. And then, are there any rules around that? Can you mint as many of those as you want? Is it going to be transparent? So yeah, there's a lot going on around that, Jeff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What else we have in here? Anything else? I think there was another one too.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, James points out here. Oh, sorry, I missed that one. Let's see. If you haven't done your research, go here. That's the xrpl.org, and that's actually a really good site. Now, one of the things that does concern me about the XRP ledger are the transactions per second. Okay, when you're looking at something like a Visa or a MasterCard, they're up in the neighborhood of, I think it's like 70,000. I mean, the XRPL is only able to pronounce 1,500, I believe.
Yeah,
I will double check that, but I mean that's not good, Jeff.
I don't know. I thought they could expand it to like 50,000 or beyond. Isn't that?
I think they can, but it's going to need. I would say start thinking about it sooner rather than later, because the XRPL, it's going to need to be able to. You don't want to hold something like that back.
Right.
Let's see transactions. Yep. Yeah, let's pull it up here.
So let's read this here. Are you guys worried about the banking and financial institutions catching up to the technology and using tech that's good enough, but a lot better than the older system? I believe that the banking and financial institutions don't build their own transactional softwares to interface with each other. Not to say that they couldn't, but they don't, or at least they haven't up to this point. The majority, if not all of the financial institutions and banks utilize third-party software platforms that are connecting everything. So I think, from that perspective, I'm not so concerned. Well, if I was Ripple, I wouldn't be so concerned. But as far as Ripple is concerned, their competition will come from organizations like R3 with Corda, or potentially even the Stellar Foundation.
Yeah, Well, there's also going to be other ones too. Hedera
Yeah,
Hashgraph 2 is doing some, I mean, some very similar things in the space. Their focus is a little bit different, but HBAR has got a pretty solid focus too. So I think that um, you know, there's going to be the thing about it is like we're getting back into that territory again where you go like there's one stock, it's Amazon, and everything else. There's one cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and then there are the altcoins. Well, guess what? There's going to be there are hundreds of businesses just in the US that all they do is move money. That's it. You're like, well, how can that be? Well, PayPal's the one you know about, or Venmo, or whatever, but there's a lot of them that have specialty or little niche marketplaces. So I'm not exactly sure to sit there and worry about, well, there's enough. There's trillions upon trillions of dollars that need to be moved on a daily basis. And guess what? The better technology will float to the top. The ones that have been around a lot longer, I saw C maybe put something in there too that talked about the fact that they've been building Rails for a long time, and the fact is they have been building it for a long time. And can somebody else come out with better tech? They can do it tomorrow, but you have to be able to lay the groundwork, right? Somebody can come in, you maybe figure it out. What do you got here, Jeff? It looks like you got something here.
there you
Yeah,
go. Read
yeah.
that one.
Yeah, wouldn't the claim by the SEC that XRP has no utility and is only being used to enrich Ripple mean that there's nothing stopping Ripple from using ODL? SEC is begging to see utility. I mean, well, I don't necessarily know that they're alleging the fact they don't really get into the whole idea of utility because their claim isn't about their. So yeah, I get what you're saying there, but in the complaint itself, the complaint specifically points to the whole idea. There's a lot of fluffy stuff in there too, but specifically what they're talking about are the founders, Brad Garlinghouse, Christian Larson, selling an unregistered security, back then being XRP. So they don't really get into use case. So part of it is that in the Wells submission, this is when Ripple had a chance to sort of like put all their ideas into like a kind of an overview. So when Ripple filed the Wells submission actually had on there a couple things that really talked about the use case. It also talked about being very competitive. They didn't want to lose that to other places, like namely China, right? Or the U.S. certainly could potentially not be a place that would be very, where we would see a lot of innovation because obviously they'd be pushing a lot of these countries out. So I don't necessarily think that they're going to get the use case. So your point's well taken. They're going to see the use case, and they're going to see multiple. They're going to start bringing up all the stuff we talked about tonight. They're going to talk about their new products they have coming out. They're going to be able to seriously identify the fact that Ripple, the company, centralized, is totally, decentralized from the digital asset. Now, how will they handle the escrow? That's stuff we can only ponder and guess about. We
Can
don't
only
know.
guess at that. Well, one of the things you bring up with the transactions, I'm looking at all these different comments coming through, and being able to handle up to 50,000 transactions is relevant if you're a Visa. One of the, again, we have to remember that one of the primary use cases of the XRP ledger and the RippleNet platform that is utilizing the XRP ledger is for bigger business transactions. You're not talking about, thousands and thousands of retail processing. So from a customer's perspective, if you're able to do 1,500 transactions per second, I believe that, even at its current status would be sufficient, to manage a customer's needs. Then you go to the next customer. So, I don't think a bank is doing 50,000 transactions per second. Visa might be, because Visa's a global, phenomena where people are buying little things all day long.
No, that's true, but you have to look at the fact that you got to make sure that your system can definitely keep up with it, right? So when I saw this headline, I laughed because sometimes you think, is this real, or are we dealing with, potentially some sort of a funny article somebody read, right? Is this parody? So I look at this article, look at this, check this one out. The Bank of England governor doesn't think cryptocurrencies are lasting. And I'm like,
Is that for real, or is that a joke?
It's for real. This is the best part of it. I was like, what? So Andrew Bailey says the perfect cryptocurrency is yet to be designed. So Andrew Bailey, this is him right here. Doesn't really know a lot what's going on. Now, he's the governor of the Bank of England. I mean, he's not like a teller, right? He's not like some person who sweeps the floor in a bank. This is the guy that's in charge of it all. So today they had a panel discussion on digital currencies in Davos. There's a lot of stuff coming on. A lot of YouTubers talking about Davos, and yeah, that's a whole other sort of thing. But he says that he doesn't think that the design for a lasting digital currency is yet to be found. So how much about digital currencies do you think he knows? He says what we've landed on, what I would call the design governments and arrangements for what I might call lasting digital currency. No, I don't think we're there yet. Honestly, I think the cryptocurrencies, as originally formatted, are it. As of now, he doesn't think there's an existing cryptocurrencies that are lasting, calling for more regulations in the nascent asset class. When asked
look
about
at what he said here. This sentence I think is very telling.
Which one? About
right
this
there.
one here?
Read it. Yeah, keep reading. Yeah.
I think we begin and the history guides us in defining where the public.
Right above it. No, right above it.
When asked about the approach to regulating crypto, the central banker mentioned that ensuring the stability of value, tackling various criminal uses, and finding the balance when it comes to privacy are his main priorities.
So that's what he's saying. I think that's so he's saying that he's not saying that that cryptocurrency as a concept won't last. He's saying that the existing cryptocurrencies won't last, mainly because they're not addressing those statements. So one is stability of value. So how do you have stability if it's super volatile? That's going to start various criminal uses. How do you track the criminal aspect of it from a government's perspective, and then finding a balance of privacy? How do you achieve privacy?
Yeah, but I mean, as a central banker, he's not looking to do any of those things. So that's what I'm saying. This is like a central banker talk for, oh, it's not the perfect thing. There's still people using it for illicit means. We know about the whole Bitcoin thing. But I think right here is really where it is. He's calling for regulations of the nascent asset class. So they want to regulate it as much as they possibly can. Being a central banker, he's looking out for his own well-being, his own job. Yeah. And that's why I think a lot of this stuff is just like, this is like what you talk about to sound smart and like, oh, we have to have a regulating crypto. We have to make sure the stability of the value and various criminal things. And you're like, come on, please. It's the whole thing is goofy, man. Wait, a central banker, hang on a second, Jeff. A central banker is concerned about your privacy. They operate inside of a vacuum. They never get audited, right? And he's looking out for your privacy, Jeff. He's very concerned about that, losing sleep at night about it.
Well,
right?
From a banker's perspective, I think a banker is concerned about privacy. I think that's the one thing that was legit in that conversation. From a central banker's perspective, he's also very concerned with being able to regulate and track. I think his statements are actually valid, overall. But I think what he's missing though is that cryptocurrencies on their own won't necessarily address that. I believe it's the software or the what you can build on the platform. So if you take the XRP ledger achieves a lot of what he's addressing. It really does create stability. It creates a lack of volatility. It allows for the seamless transaction between multiple entities with full interoperability of currency. So it achieves a lot of that. The privacy aspect of it is there to an extent if the governments don't get overreaching and start requiring that every address is then immediately revealed as to who the owner is.
No, I understand that, but I don't think a central banker. I think really they're really more concerned about their own their own future. Well, really, I mean,
I'm sure 100%. That's all he's concerned about. At the end of the day,
that's all he cares about.
He wants to make sure his bank doesn't go away, because if his bank goes away and gets replaced by Coinbase, I'm sure he's not going to be so happy.
I don't think he will be, but I wanted to tell people a little bit about the fact that we did launch our podcast, and this is it right here. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it in the comments section here. So to our podcast here. So if you go to our podcast, I'll show you exactly how this works. Now this is if you want to take us on the go, or you miss an episode, or you just want to listen in the car or something like that. This is the perfect thing. You hit subscribe, go to Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite way to consume, the audio. I prefer Spotify, but I also use Apple as well. And I do. Stitcher has some cool features which I like too, because I listen to a lot of voice. Sometimes you don't want to watch it on YouTube. Nothing wrong with YouTube, but problem is if you don't pay for the pro version of it, you can't turn your phone off. A podcast, you can flip it on, throw your phone on the whatever, play it through your Bluetooth or whatever you need to, and you can do that. Also, too, I wanted to talk a little bit about our virtual meetup that's coming up. Jeff, if you want to go on and explain that one a little bit.
The virtual meetup. So I definitely recommend that you guys register for our virtual meetup. It's coming up on Sunday, the 31st of January at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's free for all those who register. All you have to do is go to that link that we just put into the chat, click the link, go and register, and we will soon be sending out a link for you to attend the virtual meetup. And this virtual meetup is the first ever of its kind in this space, at least sponsored by On the Chain, the very first On the Chain sponsored virtual meetup. And it's going to be great. So it's all about the community. Crypto Eddie will be there. James Rule will be there. Chip will be there. I'll be there. Might have some other special guests that pop in. The key, though, behind all of this is that it's for the community. And so you're not going to be in a huge room with 100 other people. You're going to be able to move around between tables, and each table will have maybe 6 to 8 people at the table, so you'll be able to converse and meet some of the people within the community. So it's absolutely very, very cool. So make sure you go down below into the description, find that link that I just sent, and register, for that. And in the meantime, I also want to give a huge shout out to the Donnie Evans. Here he says ETH 2.0 claims 100,000 transactions per second. Do you feel this threatens XRP global utility goals or a different ball game? And the short answer of that is I don't believe ETH 2.0 is even fully functional or active yet. Does it threaten it? I don't think it does. I think there are different use cases, different purposes. Eventually, there'll be a coming together when we have Flare. Flare is going to be the common entity that pulls everything together. I guess it will be the glue.
Gas fees, Jeff. The gas fees,
the gas fees are astronomical.
When you start getting a lot of transactions and build up, and you get a little clog on the network. Now, 2.0 promises to, again, I want to see 2.0 working. I've heard, it's rolling out. It's been rolling out for 2 years, but potentially, in some ways, it might be able to handle some things, like what Jeff's talking about as far as the smart contracts concerned. Yeah, that might be something, but I'm not so sure if it'll be used as a payment rail per se, and I'm not saying that it's not possible to do some other things with it, but I think really when you're talking about sending payments 3 to 4 seconds with a couple drops, I think the gas fees might really prevent it unless they're able to overcome that.
Case, though. It's a different use case. It's meant for the smart contract. You're building. It's business. It's a whole different. Different use.
Well, that's where I think that Flare is going to put, both, as far as bring a lot of people over from Ethereum with the interoperability, but I also think too for Litecoin users and for XRP, and the fact the way you can combine, the XRP, the 2.5 times that you put in and the Flare and the Spark token and all that. There's so much going on with that the rewards are going to be phenomenal. So we're going to very soon going to be able to jump into that, which is going to be cool. And then if it's your first time here, please like, subscribe, click that notification bell. That way you get notified anytime we go live. And we have that other channel over there. If you go down in the description down there, you'll see that channel as well. So you can go down there and see that, we put short form videos, anything 15, 20 minutes. Usually sometimes they're 5, 10 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood, right, Jeff? Because
if you twist Chip's arm, he might actually make another short form video and put it over there.
I'm thinking about it, Jeff. I'm thinking about it. It's a possibility. It might even happen. So
I think
it'll happen at some point. Yeah. It could potentially happen, but
Those are all
I think,
very non-committal words.
I think Jeff's gonna. I
It
think Jeff's
might,
gonna.
it could.
It could, but
think.
the thing is, I got to do something I'm really super jazzed about, and usually I save that stuff for here, but it's all possible. So anyway, that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for being on the chain with us live tonight. Tomorrow we're going to bring you another fantastic show. There'll be more stuff to talk about, to dive
8
into.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
8 p.m. Standard Time. Where's that, Jeff?
Right here.
Exclusively here on the chain.
Oh.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.